The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Jesus and his disciples set out for the villages of Caesarea Philippi. Along the way, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" They said in reply, "John the Baptist, others, Elijah, still others, one of the prophets." And he asked them, "But who do you say that I am?" Peter said to him in reply, "You are the Christ." Then he warned them not to tell anyone about him. He began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer greatly and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed, and rise after 3 days. He spoke this openly. Then Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. At this he turned around and, looking at his disciples, rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan. You are thinking not as God does, but as human beings do." He summoned the crowd with his disciples and said to them, "Whoever wishes to come after me must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake and that of the gospel will save it." The gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Morning, everyone. Just want to make just a small sort of introduction and greeting, just to share with you all that I'm very happy to be able to be back with you all here at All Saints once more. Many of you might have observed that I've been sort of missing for a little bit, but in due time I'll kind of explain sort of what happened, where I've been. Today, in the Gospel, we hear of how Christ shares the reality of his suffering with his disciples. This is to be the beginning point for many of the disciples to sort of recognize who Christ truly is, to recognize in the deepest way what Christ's mission here on earth is for us. For all of us, in a certain way, there should be a sense of comfort and a sense of assurance that even God himself, as he took on his human nature, as he took on a human body in Jesus Christ, that even God knows what it is to suffer. Even God knows what it is to face frustration, disappointment, and pain. For so many of us, we might recognize that in our own lives, we ourselves know what it is to suffer, and in a particular way, yesterday for the country as a whole, it was a recognition and a remembrance that in this life we have not yet reached our final home. That in this life there will be much pain. There will be much suffering. Of course, those horrible attacks on September 11th, 2001, it was in that act that a few choice people decided to showcase humanity's absolute worst aspects. It was in those actions that a few choice people decided to show humanity's worst hatred, humanity's worst selfishness. However, as great a terrible act as those attacks were, I know that for myself, I really don't remember another point in American history where the country banded together in a way that had not been seen for so many years. After those horrible attacks on September 11th, communities joined together. Neighbor really wanted to be there and to help out their fellow neighbor. Friends and family made a more concerted effort to seek and to help friend and family. Simply to reach out to see how the other is doing. Wanting to open up and to share this horrible experience. Again, in not so many times in American history were there so many signs and flags throughout the entire country where people in their homes and in their businesses put up signs saying, "God bless America." In that moment, on that day and the weeks following, America was reminded of the importance of banding together. America was reminded of the importance of looking out for one another, of cherishing the journey that we walk as a nation. Now, for whatever reason, perhaps it's our own stubbornness or our own unwillingness to see the reality as it is in our everyday experiences, the fact that we can band together, the fact that we can be there, present and willing to help the other, although these sort of huge events do showcase that in a grand way, there is more than enough opportunity for us in our everyday experiences, in our everyday sufferings and trials, to share the burden of our fellow man, and that our burden be shared by those who love us. For myself, it's only been just over a year that I was ordained by Bishop Sticka in the cathedral. For 9 years, I had prayed and studied and worked and shared with so many brother seminarians and listening to the guidance and wisdom of so many good and holy priests. And after 9 years, I had finally received the gift that I was looking forward to for so long. Now, a few events happened in the last year or two, as I'm sure you're all aware, that kind of threw a wrench into my own expectation of what my priesthood was going to look like. I was thrown into a new environment, a new community, with different sort of aspects and goings-on that neither myself nor any of my fellow classmates would have ever expected. Between the pandemic, between the riots, between the division that both of these events caused, for all of us, I know for an absolute fact, we felt the suffering of the nation in one way or another. We recognized the pain and the trials that were happening in our own lifetime. For myself, because so much of this was sort of unexpected, and a lot of this we never received training for in seminary, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to receive it. I didn't know how to respond. I started to crack a little bit. For a while there, I was what you might say, I was a sandwich short of a picnic. In this suffering that I was experiencing, mentally, spiritually, for whatever reason, I felt this urge to hide it away. I felt this urge to keep it hidden from those around me and from myself. And in that, I do believe I tried to keep it hidden from God Himself. In the gospel today, it is not a mistake, it is not an accident that Jesus shares His suffering with His closest friends. God Himself desired to share every aspect of the human condition. God in Christ wanted to share His highest highs and His lowest lows. In our human experience, it is in this way that the Lord has designed us. We are called to share our common journey. Again, for myself, as I attempted to isolate in my stubbornness and in my pride, I had the thought of, no, I can handle this on my own. I don't need to bother anybody with this. I don't need to share this with anyone. It's me. I got this. As I attempted to walk this journey alone, I ended up alone. In my foolishness, I was surprised when I ended up alone. I was surprised when this journey was so difficult. My friends, in this particular foolishness of mine, in this pride and ego that I felt, that I needed to do it by myself, that I was the one that was capable of having the strength to do what was necessary, it all came crumbling down. I am not as good of an actor as I thought I was. So, thankfully, as much as I attempted to isolate, some good brothers and sisters here at the parish, they recognized that I was struggling. They saw what I was attempting to hide away. And between the fatherly, loving hearts of Father Doug and Bishop Sticka, they asked me to take some time away from the parish. They asked me to take the opportunity to really figure out what's going on with you, Alex. What's happening? Let us help you. And so, with the guidance of many wonderful brother priests and physicians, after about 4 months of treatment, I feel that once again I have something of a stable point to kind of jump off from once more. I have received a little bit more training than what I had in seminary, and I hope and believe that I have learned from my mistakes. I have learned from my experience. I can no longer isolate. I can no longer hide. I can no longer lie to myself, to you all, my brothers and sisters, And finally, I can no longer lie to God. In whatever suffering we are going through, whether it be physical, mental, spiritual, communal, that we would always have the trust and hope that God in Christ, who knows what it is to suffer, wants to share that journey. That we would have the trust and hope that as we see our brothers and sisters suffering, that we would have a heart and hands open to help and support. And finally, that we would have a mind and soul open to receive whatever help, whatever love it is that God Himself wants to share with us, or that our family and friends would want to share with us. My friends, we do not have to make this journey alone. None of us needs to be lost. None of us needs to be forgotten. Together with Christ, as a church family, we can all make it out of this alive.